Hello fellow GMs, welcome back. Today we're looking at the mysterious legend of the Sandpoint Devil, the second doom for Sandpoint and the 7 dooms for Sandpoint Adventure Path. We are diving into how the devil has shaped Sandpoint's culture from the town's earliest days, right up to the moment the whispers stop being stories and become something heroes have to face. This video will contain spoilers for the 7 dooms for Sandpoint Adventure Path, but not until closer till the end. I'll put a spoiler warning when that section begins. If you're interested in catching up with the 7 dooms for Sandpoint so far, I'm putting my GM overviews in the upper corner of the screen right now. And you already know, with all that out the way, let's get into it. Before you hear the stories, it helps to understand what the Sandpoint Devil is in the wider world of Golarion. It's a mystery monster, a creature whose reputation is bigger than any single confirmed explanation. The Sandpoint Devil has been seen, feared, and blamed for generations, but it has no clear, definitive origin story, and that uncertainty is part of its power. In Sandpoint, the Sandpoint Devil isn't just a monster. It's folklore, superstition, and tradition. It's the name people mutter when the fog rolls in, the story parents use to get children home before dark, and the easy explanation for anything that feels senseless. Missing livestock, strange tracks, a barn fire no one can explain. Long before the PCs ever see the creature, the town already knows it. This makes the Sandpoint Devil a particularly strong tool for 7 dooms for Sandpoint. In my experience, this campaign can feel fast-paced. One day the party is hearing about hoofprints on a roof, and very shortly after they are returning from the pit and killing the Sandpoint Devil. But the devil has been a long-standing presence, a dread that's been haunting Sandpoint for years and years. This video is meant to help GMs seed that presence early, so the devil's eventual confrontation feels less like a sudden monster of the week and more like the climax of something the town has been dealing with for generations. If you have the chance, sprinkle in rooftop hoofprint stories, fearful refusals to say the devil's name, and clashing origin tales from different locals. Let players overhear arguments about whether it's real, whether it marks you with doom, or whether it knows when you're talking about it. Then, when the campaign accelerates, the devil's appearance lands with weight. The thing Sandpoint has always feared and whispered about is finally on the table. And if you seed rumors, don't make them all consistent. It's a real creature wrapped in folklore so thick that the people can't tell where the monster ends and the story begins. And of course, it's ultimately up to the players to seek out this information, press rumors, and connect the dots. But if they do, this video is here to reward that curiosity and to help you flesh out the Sandpoint Devil's influence on Sandpoint's culture and narrative. On the Lost Coast of Varisia, there are plenty of things that can kill you. Storms, goblins, bandits, the wilds themselves. But around Sandpoint, there's one fear that isn't just about dying, it's about being taken. If you stay in Sandpoint long enough, someone will lean in close and tell you about the Sandpoint Devil. The Sandpoint Devil is treated in official lore as a real, singular monster, one of its kind, and thankfully the only one known to exist. Despite the name, it isn't a devil in the infernal, hellbound sense. It's a native, fiendish outsider, something of Golarion that carries hellish traits without actually belonging to Hell's legions. And when the people describe it, the descriptions are strangely consistent. They say it looks like a mangy horse, but warped with wings, standing upright like a man, with a fanged maw, a lizard-like tail, and burning red eyes. The image sticks because it feels like a nightmare assembled from familiar animal parts: horse, bat, reptile, and then made wrong. Some people swear when they've heard the devil's unsettling shriek, it forms guttural, broken abyssal words and syllables. Whether that's real or fear shaping sound into meaning, the rumors persist. In its official stat block, it is credited with being able to speak Varisian and Abyssal, but the people of Sandpoint don't know this, and they all agree on one thing: if it can speak, it does not choose to do so. What people report again and again in story after story is that the Sandpoint Devil doesn't come on ordinary nights. It comes on the darkest ones, moonless nights when the coastal fog rolls in heavy and thick. That's when livestock vanish from locked pens. That's when lone travelers don't make it home. That's when farmers wake to find carcasses in the pasture, burned and trampled, like something huge and furious tore through them. They find hoofprints that stink of brimstone, sulfur, and scorched stone. They find those tracks where hooves have no business being, on rocky ledges, deep in dense woods, and sometimes on rooftops. People talk about the way the wildlife along the road suddenly goes quiet all at once, an unnatural hush, as if the animals have learned the hard way when to stop making noise. And sometimes, worst of all, there's the unseen sound that comes from the fog, an unearthly scream, almost human, high and awful enough that more than one person has sworn it didn't just reach their ears, it sank straight into their chest, making it hard to breathe. These are the signs, the details that keep the legend alive even when no one sees the creature itself. And Sandpoint has turned those details into superstition, because when you can't solve a fear, you start managing it with routines. Sandpoint is a town with a memory for disaster, so the devil didn't stay just an animal threat, it became folklore, and once that happens, fear grows rules of its own. There are taboos on speaking its name. Some people won't say Sandpoint Devil at all. It's the devil, or that thing, or the Platter shadow. If a traveler says the full name too loudly in a tavern, you'll see heads turn. Someone will hiss, and someone else will knock on the bar twice, like that cancels out the sentence. And it's said that seeing the devil doesn't just endanger you, it marks you for doom. Varisian seers and Shoanti wisefolk are said to recognize when someone is marked in this way, and some rural communities avoid anyone who claims to have seen the devil. There are warding habits. Iron horseshoes aren't just luck here, they're defiance. Some households hang them over doorways, horns up, to hold good fortune in and keep the devil away, while others hang them horns down, and people disagree on which way is correct. There are appeasement practices. On heavy fog nights, some rural farm folk leave something outside, milk, blood, a scrap of meat, giving the devil its due. And when times are desperate, there are whispers of people doing worse. Farmers tying a goat in a far field as an offering, hoping the devil takes that and spares the herd. It's illegal and shameful, which means it happens secretly and quietly. There are Varisian travel customs as well. Varisian caravans burn sulfur or strong incense in camp near Sandpoint, either to confuse the devil's senses of smell or, in a stranger logic, to flood the air with brimstone so it won't come hunting its favorite scent. Shoanti stories add their own edge. Some speak of young braves proving courage by spending a night on Devil's Platter with a fresh kill from a hunt, not because it's safe, but because fear has to be faced on purpose. Then there are also local remedies, because some folk in Sandpoint will take advantage of the fear and superstition. For years, the alchemist known as Pillbug Potiker peddled a bitter red tincture called Red Guts, supposed to harden your stomach against the devil's fear. Whether it's true alchemy or expensive placebo doesn't matter. What does matter is that people buy it before they ride out on the road on a moonless night. The people of Sandpoint use the devil as a scapegoat. A barn burns down? The devil did it. A traveler disappears? The devil took him. Crops fail? The devil cursed the soil. And because this is Sandpoint, the fears produce hoaxes. Fake hoofprints appear on rooftops. Pranksters burn tracks into beams, sneak onto farms and steal single farm animals. These pranks feed into the rumors. Skeptics use these hoaxes as evidence the devil isn't real. But the hoaxes don't disprove the devil. They prove the legend is big enough that people can weaponize it. And that's where the Sandpoint Devil becomes more than a monster. It becomes culture. Even Sandpoint's children inherit it. They dare each other to say its name. They play games where one kid is the devil and the others have to freeze when it screams. They pass around fragments of nursery rhymes, hoofprints on high roofs, red eyes in the fog, don't be out after nightfall, until the rhyme becomes as common as a street song. It's a whole town raised on the idea that the fog might reach out and take you. The Sandpoint Devil's story doesn't begin with a single clear first sighting. It begins the way legends begin, in fragments. By around 4700 AR, not long after Sandpoint's founding, whispers began. Mutilated livestock, strange tracks, shadows overhead. One of the earliest specific rumors is Farmer Grump claiming the devil carried off one of his prized sows. Exactly the kind of story people repeat because it feels embarrassingly specific. By 4707 AR, in the era of the Rise of the Rune Lord's Adventure Path, the Sandpoint Devil has become part of Sandpoint's culture. It's a background dread, a thing that could be encountered, a threat that the land remembers even when the plot is about something else. Then comes the story that keeps would-be adventurers from doing something heroic and stupid. The boneyard caretaker, Naffer Voss, tells a grim caution. Around 4709 AR, a group of what he calls fools tracked the devil towards its lair, and they vanished, never to return. But that's not the scariest part. 3 days later, their close family members in town dropped dead simultaneously, terror frozen in them so hard that after their examination, Father Xantus could only call it death by fright. Through this tale, Sandpoint learns that hunting the devil doesn't just kill you, it reaches back and will take the ones you loved. Through the following decade, the devil's legend has persisted. There is no clean record of anyone killing it. Sightings spike when the nights are dark and the fog is thick, and Sandpoint's reflexes become automatic. If something bad happens, the devil fits the shape of the blame. Children blame it for Valdemar Manor being haunted. That rumor is wrong, but it shows how the devil becomes the town's default explanation for anything resembling haunted. Townsfolk whisper that Elsori Gandethis of Turundarok Academy has already killed it and it is stuffed in his basement. This is also wrong, also telling, because Sandpoint wants the story to have a satisfying end, even when it doesn't. And layered on top of all of it are those strange, lingering claims that written records and drawings of the devil don't last, that accounts vanish, that paintings burn, that the creature resists being documented, as if the legend itself refuses to be pinned down. Whether that's supernatural and true, mere coincidence, or just the way stories manifest when they're built out of fear is yet to be proven. Once a fear becomes culture, people need an explanation. If you ask 5 people about the origins of the devil, you'll get 7 different answers. Some will tell you the witch story, a Varisian witch named Agatha Leeds who broke a pact with the devil, and as punishment birthed the hideous devil child that fled into the wild. It's a tavern tale, a campfire story, but it sticks because it gives the horror a cause, and causes feel safer than randomness. Others claim that it's a mad wizard's experiment, a chimera crafted by ancient magic. People point to Varisia's ancient Thessalonian history of engineered monstrosities. The devil's features even feed that theory: horse, bat, lizard, like something stitched together out of nightmares. A few even insist that it's not a devil at all, but a guardian spirit, an ancient test for the unworthy. That's the kind of belief you get when you're trying to live next to the horror for too long. You start telling yourself it must have a purpose. And some swear it's a demon or an abyssal thing because of the rumored abyssal words in its scream. People who swear this are closer to the truth than they think. And the darkest rumor says it's not unique at all, that it's only one of many, that Sandpoint's just happens to be the most famous one. Official lore pushes back on that, thankfully, because Sandpoint can barely survive the idea of one. The fact is, the people of Sandpoint don't actually know the devil's true origin, but for anyone who's smart enough to piece together the geography and the patterns, the strongest context isn't a tidy origin story, it's a location: the pit. They will tell you the pit is a wound in the world that attracts monsters. Whether the devil was drawn to that wound or birthed from it is unknown. If you ask any local where the Sandpoint Devil belongs, they'll point you southeast of town, toward a bleak limestone plateau called Devil's Platter. It looms over the Lost Coast Road like a bad thought you can't shake. The edges are dangerous enough. Goblin territory is known there, especially the Bird Cruncher tribe along the western reaches. But it's the interior that people avoid, not because it's inconvenient, because it's already claimed. At the heart of the Devil's Platter is the place that anchors the entire legend, the pit. Multiple accounts agree on the pit's unnatural geometry. It's a circular chasm, about 50 feet across, dropping roughly 150 feet into darkness. Its sides are unnaturally smooth, as if something carved them clean, and inside clings a permanent bank of mist, thick enough that from above you can't see what waits at the bottom. Only the suggestion of depth and the sense that the fog is hiding something on purpose. And the pit is old, older than Sandpoint, older than the road, older even than the Sandpoint Devil itself. Its myth reaches back into the kind of story that sounds like legend, a demonic legacy tangled with the names Lamashtu and Pazuzu, an ancient conflict involving the demon Uvaglor, and a figure named Sazlaru, remembered as an Ashava-worshipping hero who fought to contain what should never have touched this world. Whatever the exact details, the shape of the truth remains. The pit is not just a natural chasm, it's a scar. What matters in the present is what the scar became over time. The pit turned into a magnet. Over centuries, monsters, cultists, ancient wizards, and desperate things were all drawn toward it. Tunnels opened, ledges became paths, dens and workshops formed in the stone. Things moved in, nested, and multiplied in the dark. And among the creatures drawn to or born from the pit's influence, the most notorious, though not the most powerful, is the Sandpoint Devil. From the Devil's Platter, the Sandpoint Devil's hunting range spreads outward across Sandpoint's hinterlands, open moors and farmlands where the fog can blanket everything, and the woodland edges where sound seems to die before it carries. Its pattern is cruelly practical. Isolated homesteads, lonely roads, places where someone can vanish without witness. Sandpoint itself sometimes feels the brush of that terror. Those famous rooftop hoofprints, the whispers that the devil has come too close. But the devil remains, at its core, a wilderness predator, not an urban hunter. For years, that was the shape of it. One monster, one territory, one long fear the town learned to live with. And then, in 4724 AR, 7 Dooms for Sandpoint adds something sharper and something organized. At this point in the video, I am going to be jumping into some spoilers for the 7 Dooms for Sandpoint. In 7 Dooms for Sandpoint, the Sandpoint Devil is no longer just a thing people whisper about. A secret cult called the Devil's Disciples are actively worshipping it. Their leader, Jordas Munt, preaches that the Sandpoint Devil is on the verge of ascending to godhood. They gather within the pit, on the 2nd level, and their devotion isn't symbolic. They perform rites in the devil's name. They spill blood to prove faith. Their human sacrifices are meant to glorify the creature they worship and to feed the legend they've built around it. And their presence has had consequences. The Sandpoint Devil becomes far more active than it has in years. Instead of stalking only when it pleases, it begins making nightly excursions from the pit, terrorizing the hinterlands with a new intensity and pushing closer and closer to Sandpoint more often. It's as if the cult's rituals and sacrifices have whipped the devil into a frenzy, its old boundaries eroding under the pressure of the cult violence and ritual obsession. The cult does not control the Sandpoint Devil, though, but their actions make it bolder, more destructive, and more willing to bring its wrath where it previously kept to the wilds. The cult's sacrifices and rituals amplify the most chaotic, demonic aspects of what the devil already is, and eventually the Sandpoint Devil rampages into Sandpoint itself in a fiery rage. Within the structure of 7 Dooms for Sandpoint, the Sandpoint Devil becomes more than local folklore. It becomes a named calamity, the 2nd Doom. Its violence escalates in steps as the adventure unfolds, each new incident making the town's old stories feel less like superstition and more like warning signs everyone should have taken seriously. By performing sacrificial rites and occult rituals to empower the devil's disciples have unknowingly put the thing they worship most in danger. Because after decades of fear, after generations of whispers, the moment Sandpoint never really believed would come finally arrives. Heroes can face the Sandpoint Devil, and they can kill it. In this adventure path's assumed outcome, the devil is defeated. The long terror ended not by a rumor, not by a charm, not by a whispered taboo, but by heroes willing to go to the pit and finish it. Even with its defeat, though, the Sandpoint Devil leaves behind something that can't be slain. It leaves behind traditions, habits. People who grew up with that fear don't stop flinching when the fog rolls in. They don't stop locking doors early on moonless nights. They don't stop telling children to come home before dark. It may take years for them to fully shake all these traditions, because in Sandpoint, the devil was never only just a monster. It was part of the town's identity. And on foggy nights, when Sandpoint goes quiet, people still listen for that unnatural, fiendish scream. So hopefully this video is helpful to the GMs out there running 7 Dooms for Sandpoint, and you can inject some of this stuff into your campaign. You could add as much or as little as you want. Maybe your Sandpoint is crazy superstitious and everyone is hanging horseshoes on their doors and putting milk and meat out every night for the devil's due. Or maybe not. I think there is a lot of cool flavor here that I would use to sprinkle in when it made sense. I didn't know most of this when I was actually running 7 Dooms for Sandpoint, So if I did run it again, I would definitely try to sprinkle in some of the stories and rumors as early as possible. You could even make up your own rumors and wild stories, because that's the thing about the Sandpoint Devil. The people of Sandpoint don't know what it is, or like why it is, or where it came from, and neither do we as GMs. It's a mystery monster of Golarion. But yeah, I would seed the rumors early, stories and traditions. Then as things started to move along in the adventure, I would start presenting the more hard evidence of the devil, like the hoofprints on rooftops, unsettling scream in the fog, more farmers saying livestock have been mutilated, and maybe even people are going missing on foggy nights. I would try to build it up more, because like I said earlier, it can come very quickly that the PCs are confronting the Sandpoint Devil, and they only heard like one time about some hoofprints on the roof. But yeah, so that's what I would do differently next time. I kind of also think it's sad that the Sandpoint Devil will be dead and gone from Sandpoint. After researching this, I realized this creature is like very much part of Sandpoint's identity, and it gives it a lot of flavor. Not that Sandpoint is lacking in flavor, it's just in official lore moving forward, the Sandpoint Devil like won't be part of Sandpoint anymore. So yeah, I don't know. Anyways, if y'all like this lore content, please let me know in the comments. Thank you all for watching this. I appreciate all of you, and as always, happy GMing.